everyone to our second event with Latino Heritage Month here at Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education. Really excited for us to be putting on this event. This is the first year that we actually celebrate Latino Heritage Month officially and formally at GSEP, not because we haven't wanted to in the past. It's right at the beginning of the term, so everyone's scrambling. We're trying to get classes loaded and everyone situated, so it has been a challenge. But thanks to the wonderful team at the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, we've managed to pull this together. Today, I'm Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, Dr. Gabby, for most of you, if you don't know me. I'm the director of the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. I actually wear a lot of different hats at GSEP, all around elevating our student voices, scholarship, and our belonging initiatives, which the heritage celebrations fall under that. My panelists here with me today are Dr. Linda Guzman, Dr. Norma Guzman, Sophia Enriquez, Moises Olavarrieta, and Suellen Schneider de Maria. Let me give you a brief background of on each of our panelists. I hope I pronounced everyone's names right. I feel names are important, so if I didn't, feel free to correct me. Dr. Linda Guzman and Dr. Norma Guzman are our recent graduates from the EDD doctoral programs. As you can all guess, they're both sisters, or maybe you can't guess, but they're sisters. And they have such amazing journeys. They came together into the program, but they have very distinct perspectives and ideas. Both Dr. Linda and Dr. Norma work in education. Dr. Linda is a principal for an elementary and middle school here in LA, and Dr. Norma is a vice principal for a high school in the LA area. Additionally, Suellen Schneider de Maria is an entrepreneur. She's originally from Brazil. She just came here to the United States to study. She's one of the members of the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, and so she was integral in us bringing these events to you. She's also serving in diverse projects related to training, certifications, workshops, and research. Additionally, Suellen dedicates part of her daily journey to voluntary work that promotes the inclusion and diversity of women and youth and vulnerability in Brazil. To that end, she serves on the board advisor member at ACETIB, and I'm sure she'll give us a little bit of background of what that means. Is director at Mujeres en Opera. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it.
Operações.
Perfect. Thank you. Translates to English Women in Operations and mentor for women and youth. Moises Olavarrieta is our academic advisor here at GSEP, and I'm really, I feel very blessed to have actual staff members. So something very unique about our panel today is, in addition to myself as faculty, alumni, current students, we actually have staff with us today, which gives us a different perspective, and just as important perspective, because they're such an integral part of our journey. So he's an academic advisor here at GSEP for the MAT, TESOL, ELAP, EDLT, the Learning Technology Programs. He was brought to the United States at the age of 4. As a result of many late nights studying with his mom and passionate teachers, he learned English and went from ESL courses to graduating from a magnet school. At a time where there was no California Dream Act or DACA, he earned a full ride scholarship due to his high academic achievement, involvement with his community, and leadership skills. This allowed him to complete his first 4 years in college. Once he graduated, DACA became available, and he was able to start a career in higher education. And finally, but not least, Sophia Enriquez is our Alumni Relations Analyst at GSEP and works with Dr. Renee Dorn in the Alumni Relations Department. She graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a Bachelor's in International Global Relations and works with building and enriching mutually beneficial relationships with our alumni community. Sophia was brought to the United States from her beautiful country of El Salvador when she was 7 years old, and she is a dreamer. She was raised by a single mother who instilled in her the importance of hard work, compassion, and a love for the community and family. So welcome, everyone. I'm really excited for this panel discussion. I think that you all have such a diverse background and you have such a I always think of a tapestry, right? Or puzzle pieces, depending on who we're talking it to, but just the way it could all come together. So hopefully we could engage everyone in conversation today, but I want to go ahead and jump into the questions, unless there's anything I missed or that you'd like to add. Nope. So we'll jump right in. So I guess we'll start with your formative years. I think we all have very differing perspectives. So as you were growing up, were there any challenges that you face in the Latino community? And if so, what were some of those challenges? And anyone who would like to answer, by all means, this is a question for all of you.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'll start. I think for myself, I'll try not to use a lot of we, because Norma and I tend to do that, to speak for each other. But I think for myself, I think one of the challenges is I went to Catholic school, and at that point, there were no bilingual education programs for Catholic schools. And both my parents are immigrants. And so they really believed in knowing how to speak Spanish correctly. So being bilingual, biliterate was very, very important. And so that was a big challenge for me, because it was the whole concept of how, my parents were really picky about speaking it well, and there was no Spanglish allowed. So both my sister and I went to weekend school. And the only one available at that point, I think it still exists too at USC, was Argentinian school, Escuela Argentina. And the challenge there was that everyone was from Argentina. All the students were from Argentina, all the teachers were as well. And so for those who know, accents are very different and words mean different things for different countries. And so that, I think, kind of was a huge challenge, because it was a mixture. My background, my parents are Mexican. And so for me and for Norma, it was a lot of kind of living in different worlds, right? Our parents spoke Spanish a certain way. We went to Escuela Argentina in the weekends to be bilingual and biliterate. And then at school, full time, obviously all English. So that was like a huge challenge. I always tell the story where like they were going to have an end of the year party, and the teacher was like, Linda, tú traes la torta. And those who know, in Mexico, torta is like almost like a sandwich, like a burger almost. But in Argentina, it's a pastel, a cake. So those are the things that I always kind of laugh about now. But as a kid, I almost felt so embarrassed, like, there's so many different words and so many different cultures. So I think I always remember that as a challenge of like, okay, who am I? And sometimes, people make fun of me because Argentina accent comes down in Spanish, and they're like, but you're Mexican. And I'm like, I know, but my parents put me in the school. And that's where I learned to kind of learn how to speak properly. So I think that's one of like the funny challenges that I think that I always kind of go back to. And I tell my students now running a bilingual school that they'll face different challenges depending on the teacher that teaches them and what's their background. But as long as that they're open to communicating, I think that's important.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that. So not as a child, but as an adult, in my first stint. So for those of you that know me, you know that I worked at GSEP a long time ago in a different capacity. I used to travel with our organization change program. And one year we went to Chile, and I hadn't been off the plane more than like 2 hours. And someone immediately said, "Eres mexicana, you're Mexican, right?" And I was like, "Yes." And then they're like, "Oh yeah, we can tell." And I'm like, "How?" And it was the accent. And, when they asked me a question, I said Monday. And so I remember asking them, like, "Well, what do you say?" Right? And they're like, "Como?" Like, "Como?" And I'm like, "Oh." And so I had to process that. And we were there about, I think, 14 days. And so it was almost like relearning things. I had my own challenges when we would go to Mexico, just because my level of Spanish language is like 6th grade, I would say. It's not university. And so I'd have to speak to university personnel and ask them for just simple things like a hole puncher, right? And it's like, well, wait, how do you say hole puncher in Spanish? And so things like that you don't stop and think about the implications. But I can imagine that challenge. Anyone else care to share any challenges they might have faced growing up within the Latino community?
Yeah, for me, the idea of being part of different worlds definitely resonated for me, not just among different Latino communities, but growing up as, I guess, not knowing the language or becoming entrenched into what it means to be an American in society today, that really was a challenge. And so I had to learn how to speak language a specific way with my friends, with the people at school, how I dressed. Deferred in my community versus at school versus at church. And so I had to learn how to be part of different worlds all the time. I think uh, specific to my experience, I was also I guess part of a single mother family, a family of with a single mother. And so that meant that I, as the oldest Latino, had to take much more responsibilities, and that meant growing up a lot quicker than most. And so I had to learn how to change diapers at the age of 10. I had to learn how to babysit. I had to become a lot more responsible, help mom earn money. And so all of that kind of just shaped the way that I viewed the world from an early age.
Thank you. And you said you're the oldest?
Yes, oldest of three boys.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. I can relate. Anyway, Sue Ellen, you had.
Oh yeah, beautiful stories. Some of the stories that Linda shared remind me of my husband because he is Argentinian. So I can tell the differences in Spanish that there is in different countries, and sometimes it was hard for me because I was educated in, not educated, I went to school to learn Spanish in a school that was teaching another accent, etc. So when I thought I knew how to speak Spanish, I didn't actually know how to speak Argentinian. So yeah. My story maybe is a little bit different than yours. When you grew up here most of you, I think, grew up here in the US. So my background is entirely in Brazil. So it's kind of a little bit different because for me, when I was a child, it wasn't a challenge at all. I didn't even knew that there was other countries or language that they should learn. But then when I started to get into the market, I started to learn that if I want to do something and explore the world, etc., as I was born in Brazil, the only country in Latin America that speaks Portuguese, I need to learn Spanish, English, etc. So I think that was the hardest, the biggest challenge, to challenge myself to take the time, start to study other languages, start to get to know other country, other cultures, start to recognize the similarities and differences that there is. And what I can tell you is not that I face much challenge growing up in a Latin America country. Of course, we have differences. I totally resonate with Moises when he said, oh, I had to help my family, etc. I started work at the age of 13. It was completely normal in Brazil. You have to work to help your family. This is what it is all about. So I had to study, but I also were working. I know that it's different in other countries, but yeah. What I think is none of those were challenge. My biggest challenge started after my adult life when I started to travel abroad. Not only the language, but some of my world views are different. For example, family or the concept of a party, religion, etc. A lot of things are very different, but it's also amazing to get to know all these differences. So my biggest challenge, I can tell that it started right after. And even today, I am from a developing country which means that in some immigration process, it's kind of funny, you know, because people don't really believe in you when you say, "Oh, I'm entering the country just to do my PhD," and someone can ask you, "Hey, are you a professional student?" or something like that. So it's really interesting to see how people see, you know, differences in our cultural background, but it's amazing because then we learn more and we start to understand how others think about the different cultures.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to share as well. I think for me, growing up in the Latino community, I think one of the challenges for me as a woman was just being able to voice my own opinions and be able to express my emotions, because I grew up in a Christian household where we were told that, you know, we needed to follow the rules. So I grew up just following all the rules, not really questioning things. And then it wasn't until now where I'm able to have the resources to have a therapist that I'm able to actually begin to heal and be able to voice my opinions and just come into fruition as my own woman. So I'm thankful for that now.
Thank you for sharing that. I would have to agree, and I know most people on this call that know me have heard this as well. I, like you, grew up in an environment where it was, you were raised to be seen, not heard. And I actually didn't come into my voice until I finished the doctoral program at GSEP, which is why I'm so passionate and I, you know, I'm always espousing the greatness of GSEP, but I think it's the people. I think it's, you know, the people that empower you to have a voice, to speak your mind without judgment and without fear. And when you find them, you have to hold on to them because they're the ones that are going to continue to kind of push you forward. And, you know, I always say, you push, I pull. That's kind of how we operate. And so thank you for that. I'm sure I see people like shaking their heads and nodding. And I think that there's a lot of relevance to all of our stories. As Latinos, we're not a monolith. We all have different stories, but there's a lot of similarities in our stories. And I think that's something to be celebrated and acknowledged. Norma, you wanted to say something?
I know for us, again, because I have my sister here, but it's one of those things that you sometimes have to fit this certain mold because you're saying you're also Latina. And, you know, for us, we were in the Catholic schools that we were in elementary school, in middle school, they were predominantly very diverse. But not as many as what we would see now in Latinos in the classroom for this particular setting of Catholic education. So we sometimes didn't fit that mold because our mom was very liberal, you know, came to this country as a student to New York at the age of 18. So she had this, you know, she is very, you open your mind, use your voice. And then we did have a traditional dad who had the portion of, you know, we are your parents, I am your dad. So we always had both parents kind of in two different worlds, but, you know, they met together. So they had a way of kind of agree to disagree between each other. But again, we always kind of struggle with fitting this mold, this idea. Are you guys Latinas? Yes, we are, you know, except my mom has these views and you see her and when you engage with her. So we've struggled with that to, you know, growing up slowly but surely as you go into the workforce, college, we start changing, evolving. But there were times that we struggle with that because we're like, oh, so we have to say, you know, certain ideas that we're all the same. And we struggled with like not sharing about ourselves. And we were like very hesitant. We're like, oh, you know, our parents did come to this country to study, or our parents, so, you know, we struggle with that growing up, but found our way to eventually say, you know, it is what it is. This is how we grew up.
very blessed, and also hopefully as examples of what we want to do with our students, and give them those opportunities that were given to us as well. So again, it was a struggle, but we slowly but surely, like you said, we found our voice, found our way of saying it's okay to say, these are the type of Latina women we are. We were raised with our parents, and, you know, use ourselves as an examples and for our students as well. So that's something I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for answering that question so candidly. So moving on to the next one, and again, this is for everyone. I've heard you all mention family, and you've all touched a little bit either on your parents or just your family as a whole. So we all know that in the Latino community, family is really important, but speak a little to what role your family has played in your career trajectory.
I can tell a little bit about that. I'm passionate about my family. I'm pretty much sure that all of you are as well. So family for me is the foundation of everything. Is the people that I know that if I am struggle, I can reach to them. If I have any kind of problem, they will support me. Just to share a story with you, in 2018, I had a burnout. I had a problem related to stress work, etc. I had 2 hernias and I lost my arm movement. And my mom, who lives in South Brazil, she went to São Paulo and stayed with me for 2 months during all my recovery. So this is all about, you know, and she is already retired, etc. And I was, you know, a strong woman working, etc. But I had a problem, and she was there for me. So this reflects family for me, and I do the same for anyone in my family. When my grandmother went to a heart surgery, I did all that I could to pay the best hospital, etc., to support them, and all this kind of thing. We get together in all festivities. My mom is in a family of 9 brothers and sisters, so every party we do is about 50, 60 people in there, because not all the time we can get everyone together, but it's, you know, it's pretty much these. So family for me is everything. It's everything. I know that even when I am old, they will be there for me, or and vice versa. In regards to my professional life career, my mom always supported me, even though she was scared to the death with some of my decisions, such as, how dare you are moving from a calm city in South Brazil, very calm, to São Paulo, or now are you moving outside the country? And this kind of thing. She would warn me, hey, my daughter, I saw some crimes going on in São Paulo. So when you drive alone, please wear a hat so you look like a man and nobody will reach you. This kind of thing. She started to create things, even in with all this distance, to protect me. So family is also protection. So it's foundation, is love, is protection. I think I think with those stories you can have an idea how important it is. And of course, with family, we have this attachment to our religious belief. Family and religion play an important part of us, of who we are, the faith. We all believe in our God, we pray together, we do everything together. It's so important for us to, you know, it's kind of the glue that stick us together. It's very important.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I could relate 100% to you, Sue Ellen. You're Brazilian. For us, education, I think I was going, is that a Mexican thing too? It's education. It's all about education. I mean, we went to Catholic school, so our parents literally invested in us to have the religious formation. the academic formation. But I think for my dad, especially, education for him was primary reason why I think he immigrated and my mom immigrated, for us to work towards being better and helping the world if possible. So I think for us, obviously, if I said we went to weekend school, that says it all. And I think part of our goal to even get our doctorate, although it was a personal thing, it was something for my dad, something to show, to thank him for all that investment that he made, not only as a father, emotionally, financially, in all facets, but really just a thank you, right, for everything of that foundation. But for us, it has always been education is freedom, education is a voice. Like Norma mentioned, my mom's super liberal. So she's like, you have to have an opinion, but be educated with the opinion, not a random comment, like back it up. And I think that has always been kind of our foundation as a family. School education, it's a great place to like meet your friends and socialize, but also a way to like grow with your professors and teachers and so forth. So for us, I can still relate to you, Sue Ellen, because I think education in all facets has been a core value for us in our particular family too.
I can definitely relate to everything that was mentioned. For my, I guess my case, the three major constants in my life have always been my family, my education, and religion. So even though we had a lot of ups and downs throughout our lives, and we had to move up and down California, the only thing that really ever stayed with me was everything that I learned in school, my family, and then no matter where we went, there was always a Catholic church that welcomed us, and we were always part of a community wherever we went, and so that was nice. And so another thing that I related to was the fact that my mom really set the core of making sure that I was in school all the time. And now, well, going from high school into college, I was so entrenched in my family and being there to help support my mom and my two younger brothers that I could not fathom the idea of going out of state to go to school. Or even when I graduated from college with my undergrad, I couldn't think of applying to jobs outside of the state. I had my family here. And so that very much shaped my career and where I'm at right now.
I can definitely relate. When that's one of the conversations we constantly have in my household about leaving the state. And I'm native to California, so there's that, right? So that already works against me because it's like, how could you ever leave? But then there's this idea of all my family's here. Like unless they're about to move with me. And my mom already said, good luck with that. It's just not going to happen. So I can completely understand. Anyone else want to speak to the family role or the role of family? Alrighty, so let's move on to the third question. And this one specifically to those of you in the room that are immigrants. Speak to your experience either as a new arrival, a recipient of DACA, or even as a first-generation immigrant coming here for your education. And I know that just based on our conversation, you've mentioned it a little bit, but speak to your overall experience, how that shaped your current place, if you will. Sophia, do you want to get started?
Yes. So I was born in El Salvador, and I was brought to this country at the age of 7. So it was definitely a big culture shock when I, got here. I didn't know the language at all. So I think that for me instilled like compassion because, being new to this country and not knowing the language was very hard for me, especially with the little kids. They can be mean. And then all of that played into me like growing a passion for school and like really being dedicated to school. And during high school, I thankfully I was able to receive DACA when I was in high school, but there wasn't a lot of resources with counselors even knowing that I could apply for financial aid. So I kind of had to do the research on my own, and thankfully my mom as well, even though she doesn't know the language, she got on the computer and was able to like help me out, you know? So having that support from my family was really instrumental to me in even being able to attend higher education. Because I then found out that DACA students were able to receive financial aid, and that was the only reason why I was able to attend a college. And having DACA, I'm super thankful for it. It's definitely been a challenge having to renew it every 2 years, especially because of how expensive it is. So I looked to outside resources such as Chirla to be able to help me out with paying for those services. But again, those are very limited. So I remember my first year in college, I had to renew it. And obviously I'm a college student, I was working 2 jobs. I did not have the fees to be able to pay for, you know, legal aid or for the $500 application. So I drove after work at 2 a.m. to LA to line up to receive help, because they were only letting the first 25 people get financial aid to be able to help with their DACA renewal. And I was the 26th person. So I lined up all night and I wasn't able to get it. So all of these experiences have really instilled in me the ability to be able to relate to people and to be able to help. And in my position, I really want to give people the voice to be their authentic self. And yeah, that's been my experience. But I'm super thankful that I even have DACA, because I know a lot of others that don't have that privilege. So I am overall grateful.
Thank you for sharing. Moises?
Yeah, my experience is pretty similar. I came to the US at the age of 4. And so I really only have 3 memories of Mexico. From there, all of my experiences in the US. And so I did remember having to relearn the language when I was younger. I always jokingly say that the first time that I pulled an all-nighter learning English was at the age of 4, because my mom would stay up with me to teach me English, so I wasn't too behind when I started school. And I didn't really understand that I was undocumented until I hit high school. That's when I started applying for colleges, applying for scholarships, and I went through different, I guess, scholarship opportunities. I went all the way to the end. I was a finalist, and then it wasn't until I got to that point that somebody would say, "Oh, you're undocumented, you're ineligible for the scholarship." And so all the time that I spent working towards that, and all my hopes to get some funding for my school just went out the drain. So I had to go through a lot of those experiences in navigating my way into college. But I think I was pretty blessed to be part of different communities that loved and cared for me. A lot of my high school counselors were, I guess, knowledgeable about my situation. They would send me scholarships that I was eligible for. There was no DREAM Act back then for me, and so it was just scholarships or any out-of-pocket expenses. And I think I was really, I guess, covered in this like protective love bubble that I think LA is, until really 2016, November. And then I felt that when Trump was elected, I really felt, as somebody that had an undocumented status, that there was no love for me in the country as a whole. specifically because of all the anti-immigrant rhetoric that he was saying, especially for me coming from Mexico, and then him with his Mexico comments, really hurt to see that so many people wanted him in office. And so that whole experience was pretty traumatic. And every time that he was in office, anybody that had DACA can tell you that it was like if you were standing in line, and then every time there was something that was anti-immigrant, it was like if somebody got hit right next to you, and you were just waiting to see when DACA was going to be taken out, because of all the anti-immigrant policies that were coming out during the time, or all the news stories that were coming out during the time. And so that's been my experience, and it's still a battle. It's still going on. DACA is still a thing, and then there's no permanent solution to this date. But at least now, I think we're heading in a positive direction, and all we can do is keep praying and keep moving forward, and keep studying, because that's always been one of my constants. Keep my community around me, which is why I'm thankful for opportunities like this, where I'm able to share my experience, and yeah, just keep my family close.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
I have a different experience. New world.
I know. So share your experience, Llewellyn.
I'm still learning. No, it's what I wanted to say is listen to your story, no matter where we are coming from. Moises from Mexico, or Sophia from El Salvador. It's very hard to move. I know. I might imagine that there are other immigrants. Maybe they are non-immigrants like me, because my process to come to the US, I am a student, so I'm non-immigrant. Here, I have my business, etc. There in Brazil, I live here, but I have everything else there. It's hard. It's hard. It requires resilience. It requires purpose. It is a lot of effort, because we are here to pursue some kind of dream. I was talking to Dr. Gabby this morning about dreams, and it's something that moves us to be here, to learn a new, cultures, to adapt ourselves, because the point is we adapt ourselves to feed in this new world. And I don't think, as as a foreigner here, I don't think it's bad at all. It will change. It will not change my essence, but it will help me to transform myself in a better version of myself. Of course, there are hardships. As I mentioned before, the immigration process might be tricky sometimes, but most of the times it's okay. But sometimes we have to listen some types of questions that scares us, right? What if this person doesn't allow me to, enter in the country again? All my stuff is there. I have to finish my PhD, or a lot of questions start to pop up in our heads when this kind of thing happens. But other than that, I think that, I have been having a very good experience, thanks to Pepperdine, thanks to the center, thanks to the community. I had tried to join a lot of different groups discussions. When I started, I participated in international students groups. I participated in some of the meditations group, etc. All to help me to understand, to cope with the differences, and to help me to learn faster. Also, I have been so welcomed by my friends here, by Dr. Gabby, by Shaletta since the first, and Crystal. All of them try to include myself, and this is so meaningful. It helps us. It's similar to having a family, to build a new family outside, to build, to create members that we will, they will remain with me in my heart to the end. And it's very meaningful for me. also there are sometimes we struggle, then we have technology. Another day we were talking about the benefits of technology, because the ones of us who have only part of our families here, it's very hard when we miss our, beloved ones. So we can have a video conference and cry and laugh. And I have a coffee, afternoon coffee with my mom. It's wonderful for me, because I can, I can kind of feel like she is here. And also, one thing that I do to cope with that is I look for different restaurants. For example, there is a Peruvian restaurant nearby, and one of the waitress, she is Mexican. She's from Mexico, and we started to talk to her about everything. By the way, she is going on in vacation, so I won't be going to the restaurant for the next couple of weeks. I will wait for her to come back, because we. Dr. Gabby knows that I like to talk to strangers and get to know them. This makes me feel like I'm part of something. It makes me feel like I'm part of of their lives, and they remember me. This girl, she remembers me, and I remember what she shared about her family with me, and we share some commonalities, like we both miss our families, but we are here for our dreams. She has her dreams, I have mine, but we are here to, accomplish something that we believe in. So yeah, that's it. It's hard, but it's worth of it.
Thank you, Sue Ellen, for sharing that. And thank you all for sharing your stories and such a personal experience. So we're moving on to the next question. And this is for all of you, but I know that you all have a different perspective. So can you describe your experience in higher education as Latino individuals?
So I wrote about it a little bit in my dissertation, because my focus was Hispanic leaders in schools. On a personal level, I went to Mount St. Mary's University. It's very diverse in student body, but I never had, and people are always surprised. And I think the self-reflection came after we interacted with Dr. GR, who's here, Dr. Miramontes, and other professors. But at the Mount, I never had a Hispanic professor. Like I never had in the time I was there. Mind you, I got my undergrad and master's degree. Never an interaction, whether it's through having a professor in class or having a mentor. I would say the strong mentors that I did have, which I did in my undergrad and master's degree, were white women and white men. And they were very supportive, very empowering. But I never realized, like, oh, we don't have certain commonalities, right? Until I went to Pepperdine. And the reason we went to Pepperdine was it's not Catholic, but it's still Christian, right? And we wanted a difference. But here we interacted where we had Dr. GR and with her background, and I see Dr. GR there, and you, Dr. Gabby, women that look like us, right? That have similar Mexican background experience that we could laugh about. I think we one time laughed about our jewelry, and I was like, oh no, my necklace is like, costume jewelry. It's not real gold. We tend to use real gold, right? So that joke of like, the ID bracelets and things like that we have as Latinos that we could connect with. And that's when it kind of clicked when Norma and I are like, you do realize they're like the only like professors that we had that look like us, right? And not only are you representation, but you're strong representation that are supportive, that are have a high role. And so for us, I think it was really an awakening, and a really, as educators ourselves, we've always believed obviously representation matters, and having people that look like you matters, and learning about other cultures matters. But it gave me a bigger sense as a school administrator with my Latino students, right? To really be able to know that I do connect with them in a different way. And why is that? And what similarities do we have? Or, if they're from El Salvador, what differences that we could laugh about that we have in words and foods and different things. Because we are such a melting pot in LA that it's such a mixture of Latinos. But I think for me, it was because I truly believe mentorship makes an impact. And I know Moises talked about counselors and people that were there for him to guide him. I just think that that's such a big impact in anyone succeeding, any student from any background. And for me, it was just a reality check, like, oh, guess what? Just because I surround myself by educated Latinos doesn't mean everyone had the privilege of getting a degree. And everyone, I just hear Sophia's story and I think like, wow, the resilience, right? Like the struggle, the strength you have is so empowering that you can mentor, you could help support others with your voice and with your story. But yeah, not until higher ed, which is sad to say, that we didn't have women or men that looked like us in the field of education.
Thank you. Anyone else like to answer that question?
Yeah, I think that for me, I'm in higher education. So I went to UCSB and it's considered a Hispanic serving institution. But my experience at UCSB was definitely, I got a lot of support from the communities that we built at UCSB, such as the Educational Opportunity Program that has their own set of counselors that actually looked like me. Because I remember going to to get help for some of my classes in college, and I went to the regular counseling office and I felt so discouraged. I was already coming in there, not really knowing my way around, because I was the first person ever to go to college here in the United States. And I felt so discouraged after I left there. And one of my friends told me that there was the Educational Opportunity Program that I could be a part of, and they had their own counselors, and she really pushed me to see more than I could ever envision for myself. So that experience was really beneficial to me. And I think that, we are seeds that sometimes go unwatered, but still we continue to rise. And I think all of that, I think to the communities that we build, because also I was part of a multicultural organization on campus called Sigma Alpha Zeta. And my sister Sabrina is actually the one that told me about this position when it came out, because she's a enrollment officer here. So all of that, I just love the community building. And yeah, that was my experience in higher education.
Thank you.
I mean, I'll share a little bit as well. I know Linda did. But for us, Mount St. Mary's was definitely a place that we liked, and we felt that definitely did nurture us. But knowing now, having been at Pepperdine and having these extraordinary professors who are Latina women, and we go back and we think, well, what about if we would have had some Latina or Latino professors at Mount St. Mary's? How could have that, and I know it's not good to think this way, but how could have that changed maybe different paths or different interests that we've had, and that nurtured us? Sorry, that's Kona. And how could have that nurtured us to have that mentorship at Mount St. Mary's, someone who could relate to us? We lived on campus our first year, and then our second year, our parents bribed us to come back home, and it worked because it was a really good bribe. So we both came back home. And so looking back, when we look at our experience at Pepperdine, we think, well, what change could have happened for us personally, having someone that represents us, or now thinking, hopefully Mount St. Mary's, we keep on using this university in particular from our experience, but maybe we will have that opportunity as well if they're looking at many universities as integrating more diversity, especially in particular because it now serves a good number of Latino women. It's a predominantly Latino, a woman college. So for us, it just kind of, you reflect on it. And I think that's what higher education for us at Pepperdine and receiving our doctorate has had, like a lot of moments of reflection, of just very blessed that you've had the opportunity, and you where we're at now for us, and the training that was given to us, and where could we take it with our students that we serve, that we are those representatives for them. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
I can share a little bit of the differences that I found. First of all, I would like to say that for us in Brazil, for a person like me, being able to, do a PhD here in the US is just, wow, this is amazing. This is, the top of top, because every top business or top university, they use all the resources from the US. So for an academic in Brazil, publishing outside, especially in the United States, or having the experience, it really leverages our position there. So I believe for me, it's just, all the resources, everything that we have access here is just so amazing compared to developing countries, because you really produce a lot of research. We don't have an investment producing research, producing knowledge, real knowledge there. So first difference is that we really appreciate and we really recognize that, and it really leverage our experience when we come to the United States to learn with you. Second thing is, well, I'm from Brazil, If you read something or study something about Brazil, you will find out that we love to party. So one of the differences that I realized, of course, we were in the pandemic, but we in my master's degree, for example, we would join together once a month, every Thursday night, Friday, up to 6 p.m., then Saturday and Sunday, same time. And every Friday, we would go to a pub to drink until like 11 midnight or so. And the first thing we do is to create all this big group, and there is no small groups. Like one thing that caught my attention was when Linda was explaining the first time she related to people like her. So we were all part of the same group, and we did that because we believe in the power of many. Let me tell you an example of that. We know that if one person would negotiate something with a faculty, they would lose the game. So we use always the power of the many to realize what is these battles that we would, put our efforts together. And I can tell you, we won most of the battles for assignments, etc., and all that we need, because we used to work together as a whole team, men, white, black, men, women, everyone together would negotiate for those terms. So this is one of the differences. Here in the US, I think that we form group. It takes more time. It takes more time to get to really know each other, because of this difference. We start, getting along and, hanging out and drink together right in the beginning. So we started to learn the funny stories of people when you were drink with them. And here we have to, we need more time to get to know people. So this is one of the differences that I realized. It's not bad. It's just the difference, and it taught me how to behave in different in different groups. So it's very interesting, and yeah, I like it.
Thank you,
Of course, I
Suellen.
prefer to drink, but no
Right.
problem.
Well, we must remember Pepperdine is a dry campus. Just had to throw that out there.
So cut it off, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Moises, do you want to add your story?
Sure. While everybody was speaking, I found myself going back to what Dr. Linda Guzman mentioned about privilege, and I felt like I resonated with that. I think going from high school to college, I knew I was going to college. I never really questioned me belonging in my undergrad, but that was as a result of participating in many programs like CAMP, which is a program for migrant farm workers, and they have their students live on college campuses for a week or two to get to know the area, have them take actual college courses. That was a result of being part of different college preparatory programs that set me up to have that belief and feel ready to take that step. Definitely growing up in middle school and high school, I saw my friends dwindle, go either have their own families, go to jail some, definitely some just didn't want to pursue college. Others just wanted to provide for their family, go straight into the workforce. So it's definitely something that I felt privileged in the fact that I knew that my counselors believed in me and they gave me resources to apply to college. And I think that was like less than 10% of the entire college, the entire school. And so I was very lucky to go to school. And then once I was in college and even grad school, I studied more, and I learned that it was really more, I guess, designed that way. It was never really meant for me to go to college or for Latinos to go to college. The first universities were for white males in the United States. And so for people of color to go to school, that's fairly recent. And so as we keep on pushing boundaries, that's kind of what I'm helping do and what I'm helping my little brothers do, and hopefully help the current students that are going to school now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. And thank you all for sharing. I have a whole bunch of questions I can ask, but the reality is that we're already out of time. I just want to give our guests joining us, if there's any questions, anything that you'd like to add or contribute, now would be the time. Obviously we don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to open it up to everyone or anyone. Crystal?
Hi, Dr. Gabby. Thank you and the center for hosting this. This was amazing. I came specifically to support Suellen and you, Dr. Gabby, of course, but I am beyond thrilled that I was able to share in your heritage and experience your heritage through your own eyes. So thank you for sharing. My question that I have is, are the Guzman sisters twins?
No, we are Irish twins. We are, I'm the accident. We're literally a year and a half apart. Yeah, my mom is such a out there. She's like, I didn't want to have children. And then my dad was like, I have to have a daughter. So yeah, Norma's a year and a half. She's my older sister. She's a year and a half. And then I am the second. So it's only two of us. So it's only two girls in our family.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Dr. GR?
Hi, everyone. We're checking in from the Irvine Graduate Campus. I'm here with Denise Calhoun, who is one of this year's postdocs.
Hi, Denise.
Recipients, and she is working alongside with me. And we are getting ready to go to class because we got to teach. And we don't really have a question, but I just wanted to thank all the panelists because you all are amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being brave and opening up. These are difficult conversations. They're very personal and very emotional. And you all have done such a great job sharing them this evening. So I just wanted to thank you because it's great to hear other voices that that hardly ever get the limelight like it's happening tonight. And thank you, Dr. Gabi, for putting this on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Have a great class tonight. Alejandra, you have a question?
Yeah, just mostly a comment. Hi, Dr. G. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all your voices and perspectives. Some of you I've met before or chatted with, and others are new voices to me. And I definitely could relate. Half my family is from Mexico, half are born in the US. So I'm born here too. So it's always been walking through two different cultures, but everything you guys said resonated: family, religion, the educational drive, etc. So thank you all for sharing.
Any other questions, comments?
Good evening. This is
Good
Carla.
evening. Hi, Carla.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for being so open with your experiences. I especially was drawn with Sophia's experience with DACA, and it inspires me to research it more because she mentioned that there's a process of renewal every 2 years, and I really know nothing about that. And so thank you so much, because it'll give me a better insight even for this with the students I serve.
I agree. Thank you so much, Sophia, for sharing that. I had no idea that we charged people for that. That's shocking to me, and just showed me how ignorant I was of the entire process. And I'm really grateful for you and for everyone else who shared their experiences. There was so much diversity of experiences, and it reminded me of the value of qualitative research and, getting to dig in and really appreciate the depth of the narrative for people's stories, not just the numbers or the statistics. I think this was just a really powerful evening. Thank you.
Oh, thank you both. I was super nervous, so thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Guzman?
Each of you and each of your stories are really inspiring. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. I wanted to express my gratitude, and I'm glad that we're all able to be here. And thank you, Dr. Miramontes, for hosting.
Absolutely. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, we will go ahead and call it an evening. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for sharing in these stories. This is our community. This is Pepperdine. This is GSEP. And so it's the center's privilege to share all of these stories, and we will continue. We have a series of events, as you all know, coming up with more speakers. And as we move through the year, we're going to be celebrating not just the Latino community, but we are going to be celebrating our Indigenous people. We're going to be celebrating for Black History Month and Women's History, and our Asian American Pacific Islanders, and of course our LGBTQIA+ community as well. So know that that's coming. But continue to join us, if you will, for Latino Heritage Month. There's more to come. We have the Lunch and Learn. We're providing lunch if you want to come in here, Dr. GR talk. We're doing Day of the Dead workshop, which we're providing chocolate caliente and conchas, and both Linda and Norma Guzman will be actually hosting that and sharing the history of Day of the Dead and showing anyone who's interested how to make an altar. So please join us. The link is in the chat box to register. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you all for being here. Thank you to my panelists. You guys rock. I so appreciate your bravery and your courage and your resiliency. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening all.